Hello, welcome to part 3 of Coding for Kids in Scratch. Today, we'll be going over chapter 11, which is all about getting inspiration. So, let's get started. Sometimes it can be difficult to figure out where to start with a new project. Thankfully, Scratch has a vibrant community with thousands upon thousands of projects to draw inspiration from. By exploring all of the games and projects on Scratch, there are plenty of opportunities to find new ideas and learn more about what you can do. Every now and then, you're going to come across a project that's just really awesome. Whether it be functionality or visuals, there's something that draws your attention. You want to see how it works or what they did to make their project look so polished. Thankfully, Scratch provides some ways to make this possible, and those ways are what we're going to be covering in this lesson. So, let's find a project that looks interesting from the home page and open it up just by clicking on the image. I'm going to be using a project that I made years ago to show you guys the same exact things that you can use when you're making projects of your own. So you should see first that when you view a public project on Scratch, you don't see the code at first. Instead, the stage is shown with instructions for use and other notes to the right, and then the title is at the very top. This page is known as the project page, and it exists for every project on Scratch. While we were working on other programs, you may have noticed a button above the code area that says See Project Page next to the Share button. And as we mentioned at the start of this book, this button will let you show the project page for the project, and then it'll let you edit what people will see in the instructions and in the notes and credits section. So now, at the top of the page to the right of this project title, there's two buttons. The first button, Remix, creates an exact copy of the project for you to make some additions or modifications to it. So this can be helpful if you love a game or project and you want to add some levels to it, or you want to modify some aspects to make it your own. Then the other button, See Inside, lets you access the code area of the project. You can add code and see its effect in the stage, but it won't actually change anything in the publicly published project. So sometimes though, instead of the entire project, there might be a section of code that you think you can use in a project of your own. So fortunately, Scratch has an easy way to copy certain sections of code from one project to another. It's called a backpack, and it's located at the bottom of the code area. So if you haven't already, let's click the See Inside button to open up the project page to view the code for the project that we're looking at. And when you're looking at these games and projects that are super fun to use on Scratch, it's easy to get intimidated by all of the code. Like if we zoom out, you can see just how much code there is in this project. And this is just one sprite. But it's alright, you don't have to be intimidating. Just look at the code in sections and go one block at a time and try to figure out what each block does and how it contributes to the project. And by going through slowly and methodically like that, you'll actually figure out and understand how these people's mind worked when they were coding the project. So once we go through methodically like that and read through all the code, you might actually find a section of code that you really like and you think you might be able to use it in a project of your own. Like for example, I'm going to look at this code over here, which is defining movement to the right, which allows you to both sprint and to move slow all within one set of code. So what I'm going to do now is I want to copy this code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click at the bottom where it says backpack, and the backpack will expand a little bit and it'll have a large empty space. So what we're going to do now is you're going to find the section of code that you want to copy, and then you're going to click the top block, and then you're going to drag it into the backpack, so that your cursor's in the backpack, and then the backpack will be highlighted in blue, and then you can let go. And then a little tiny version of the backpack will open up here in the backpack, and it'll show you a small version of the code that you just dragged into the backpack. So you can also copy parts of code, like say maybe I only want this one if-then loop, then you can actually just click that if-then loop and drag it into the backpack, let go. The if-then loop will return to its correct spot in the code, but then you'll see that we now have a small version of the if-then loop in the backpack as well. So I'm sure you can see now that this backpack is pretty important. It lets you store stuff. So let's see how we can actually put this into a different project. So let's go back to the Scratch homepage, and if it asks you to leave, you can just click leave because you don't want to save any changes to the project. So then the next thing we're going to do is open up the project that we're working on. So if you're working on a project that you already know that the code that you're copying it to, then you can just open up that project. But for now, just an example, I'm going to open up a blank project so I can show you how this works. So once the project opens up, you can just go to the bottom and open the backpack, and you'll see that the code that we copied into it is still there. So now we can just click and drag that little tiny version of the code and drag it to the code area. And then once the code area is highlighted in blue, you can just let go, and all the code just appears. And you'll see that because I decided to choose a block that has a definition in it, if we go to the My Blocks, automatically a new block is created for me. So if I just drag this to the code area and put a when green flag clicked block on top of it, now if I click the green flag to start the program, we'll see that the code works exactly as intended. I can sprint and move to the right normally as the code is meant to do. And if we see that I can also copy this other code that I got into the project, and you'll see that this if then loop that we copied from this section of code can also be copied and brought into this project. Now, if you copy a section of code or you remix a project, it's important that you give credit to the people who originally created it. Otherwise, you're just stealing their work and claiming it to be your own, and that's not very nice. So this credit should be given as a reference to the original project or the creator of the code and their username in the notes and credits section of the project page. So now that we've covered that, there's actually one more way of copying a project, and that's to download a project and then re-upload it to Scratch. So say for example that I wanted to make a copy of this project. So then I would go to the top and click File, and then I would click Save to your computer, which is the last option. And this is going to download a .sb3 file with the same name as the title of the project. So then to open up this file in Scratch, let's make a new project by clicking File and then New. And then once this new project is open, let's click File again. And then we're going to click Load from your computer, which is above Save to your computer from before. And then once the Explorer opens, you're going to choose the file that we just downloaded. So once you find and open the project file that you're looking for, Scratch is going to ask you if you're okay with replacing the contents of the current project. So if you're alright with any of the code that's in the project being deleted and replaced with the code from the other project, you can just click OK. And then once you do, you should see that the code from the previous project and even the title gets moved over to this project. And even though it looks exactly the same, this is actually a brand new copy of the project. So this is essentially the same process as using the remix button, but it'll give you a little more control of the project. And then you can also use this feature to save the project without an internet connection. And this is a little more important because what happens when you open up Scratch is that it opens up your computer. And you can use all of Scratch without an internet connection, except you can't save your projects to Scratch. So if you ever lose your internet connection while you're working on a Scratch project, you can always click File and then save the project file to your computer as another way of saving your project. And with that, we've actually just finished everything we need to cover in this chapter. And you'll notice that this chapter is pretty simple, which is by design. Scratch was made to foster a collaborative environment. Every user of Scratch is able to share projects of their own and view other people's projects so that everyone can grow and improve together. And everyone's encouraged to explore what's being done on Scratch and to grow in their understanding of programming. So hopefully, I hope that you can find and make your own contribution to the community by getting inspiration from others or by doing something completely new all by yourself. So, with that covered, congratulations on finishing the third part of the book. Let's move on to the next and final part of this book, which is all about our next steps.